YouTube. Welcome back to Nutkin Farm. This is the first desktop-based video I've ever made, but there's a very good reason for it, and that is the LIDAR mapping that I had carried out on Nutkin Farm has just been completed, and I thought I'd show you the results to see what, or to demonstrate to you what LIDAR mapping can do in terms of planning your property. Now, this property mapping was done by a man called Bob Howard. I believe he was originally from the Northern Rivers, currently living in Western Australia. He is able to use mapping of the property with LIDAR, which shows the elevation and various other features of land, in order to show what's happening on your land, where the waterways are, where the drainage channels are, where lots of areas of concern are if you're planning an orchard or wanting to go about fixing things like drainage. So I thought I'd just briefly take you through some of these maps. They're a little bit bewildering, so I'm not going to spend overly much time on any of them. But the map you see at the moment is the aerial photograph of Nutkin Farm, taken on 17 July, so nice and easy. In fact, in the spare paddock you see over on the western side of the farm, you can even see where the slashing has started to commence, and the field is now almost entirely slashed. However, it shows the dam in a big blue area in the centre. It shows all of the sort of waterways. They're all underground apart from the creeks leading to the dam. Shows the farmhouse and the various blocks of Nutkin Farm. And just so that you know, the numbering of my blocks that I use in my videos starts basically from the top right and goes clockwise. So 1 is upwards from the farmhouse, northeast of the farmhouse, which is in red, and then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 around there. Goodness knows what I'll call the spare paddock when I plant it. But here's some examples of what can be done with LIDAR mapping. This is just a photograph of the farm without any embellishments at all. So that's a nice aerial picture of the farm itself. We have here areas of concern which have been identified by Bob, and these are areas where water is channeling through the trees in the existing blocks. And we have a couple of areas in block 3, one in the middle of block 1, where water tends to go down through the middle of the trees. Those are sort of noted as areas of concern. Most of the other areas are actually between the blocks on the property for the most part, but it's good in identifying areas that may need special drainage attention. Luckily, there are no areas of concern in the spare paddock. This very colourful map is the aspect which shows, as I understand it, the area of the slope or direction of the water flow, which I need to dig into a little bit further. Honestly, I don't quite understand it yet, or what the significance of it is yet, but another tool. This more detailed map shows drainage management identifiers, and there's obviously high gradients identified on the map, which is showing the steepness of the block and showing where water courses flow down, and it's sort of showing where, if anything, drainage needs to be put in to relieve pressure points, and some of them go through the existing blocks, some of them go in between them. This drainage map is more an actual diagram of where water drains in the farm. So you can see literally where water tends to go when it rains. Not all of this is visible above ground, bear in mind, most of it's underneath, and it's showing some potential on this map for erosion, with the red areas being high potential of erosion and purple being really quite dangerous. This map here shows the elevation, so we're actually looking at straight altitude here, where are the high points on the property and where are the low points. And it's fairly obvious that the lowest points are in green down towards the dam. The higher the point, the sort of more orange the colour. The farm plan here is essentially the boundary of the farm. You can actually see the boundary of the property quite clearly here. The green areas are macadamia blocks as identified in the mapping. Now they're not my identified blocks for the most part, but they do identify correctly where trees have been put. And here is a flow direction map in terms of where water flows. But the interesting thing on this map and some others is that it actually maps the individual trees and where they are on the map. It seems quite accurate, and it's even measured the tiny little MCT1 block I've got about midway up the map to the left of the dam and up the hill a bit. This map is Geomorphology. Not quite sure how to use that one, but it's there and it may be of use to someone in planning. This one is the length slope factor, which I understand measures the length of a slope, but between drainage channels, showing potentially pressure points, so that if you've got a long slope between a drainage channel, you know that that might be an area for remedial drainage. Again, slope length. This is a particularly colourful map. I don't know quite how to read it in terms of planning. Hopefully it's going to be of use to someone in the planning process. These are the slope zones. This one's actually quite helpful to anyone. It shows you generally how sloping the land is on my blocks. Purple being an area of very high gradient, black being a cliff. Thankfully there's no cliffs in amongst my macadamia trees. We're not quite that stupid, although there's an area that looks close in block 5. However, in these particular blocks, it does give some identification of where the difficult blocks are. To a large extent, because I mow the blocks, none of this is of any particular surprise to me, but it's certainly good in terms of where we might plan for a new block or even a replant. Slope, again, it's a variation on a theme. It's a more colourful map, certainly. I don't know how much more useful it is. Hopefully it will be to somebody. The stream power index beats me, really beats me. Possibly something to do with how forcefully the water flows down the hill, and might be an indicator of how much erosion might occur in any given stream, but I'm guessing. Surface water flow, again, is some indicator of where water might flow down the surface. It has identified, as other maps have, it has identified the area in block 3 where I showed you in a few videos ago that water didn't really want to go down the water channel. It was actually cascading down a bit beforehand. Here's a map of the tree locations, which is a great planning tool. It shows me where my trees are. I wish it counted them for me, but I don't think it has actually done a tree count. But it shows where the buildings are on the property, where the trees are, and it seems actually fairly accurate for the most part, although I suspect it's probably picking up a few stumps in the older blocks. I guess we'll see. And the topographic wetness index, I believe, is a measure of how wet land is going to stay when water does flow, and the areas of red, I imagine, are areas of higher wetness. Not surprisingly, near the creek and near the dam are parts of those. And actually near the dam, close to the farmhouse, was one particular wet area where my friend's four-wheel drive got bogged. So absolutely no surprises there, but I guess this tool allows you to learn without making those mistakes. Level of vegetation can be seen on this next map. It's not a bad indicator of where you might want to prune. According to this, block 3, which has showed us the darkest green, is is very thick macadamia canopy and might mean that it's a candidate for pruning when I next go about a pruning exercise. Interestingly, block 5, which was pruned in last season, showing up as less vegetated. Water catchment, again, I'm not quite sure what that means in terms of macadamia plantings, and I don't know quite what the colours mean either, but we'll see. And that's it. That's actually the full suite of maps. There's about 20 odd maps that we've gone through. The significance of them, I guess, remains to be seen, but I did want to show you these things as a tool for planning your property. One thing I've gone back to Bob Howard with is, he's offered to give me a plotting of potential trees in the spare paddock. So I've given him the mission of saying, well, look, where would you plant the trees? What direction would you plant them in? And where would you stop planting in terms of, a nice conservative planting that is fairly easy to manage. So I'll see what he gets back to me with on that, and might give you a short update on what he finds. Anyway, there is an example of LIDAR mapping for you folks. The whole cost for me was $500 plus GST, which for the amount of analysis involved and the amount of hours that would have gone into the analysis from Bob seems to be particularly good value. It's a tool I've handed on to my agronomist now so that we're aware of what those drainage issues are. Agronomists can read this a lot more meaningfully than I can, and it is a tool in your arsenal to help in future planning rather than just guessing. Thanks for watching this demonstration, guys. I will be back with a real live video on the farm very soon. Bye for now.